Welcome back. I have some bad news. All good things come to an end, even man. Man has been murdering his way through Gotham for years now, raining terror down on the criminals of Gotham, ending their lives without mercy. And after he killed Jonler, Gotham has been quiet. Too quiet. If you haven't, go and watch the rest of the series. It'll get you up to speed on the man lore and sort of how we work around here. Subscribe, like, and get ready. But first, some rules and some changes from our previous outings as man. The first rule is, as usual, every time an enemy can be killed, they must be killed. Rule number 2, kills will be counted on a kill-by-kill basis. I have a set of rules in place from previous videos, but given how different this game is from the others, the rules have to be bent a little bit, so certain things might count as kills that aren't counted in other games. For example, ledge takedowns were removed and replaced with silent takedowns near ledges. These won't count as they're just replacing silent takedowns. These won't count as they are just silent takedowns. However, fear multi-takedowns in any capacity will count as a kill, since Batman's hitting the thugs at like max 7, and even if a thug touches the man-mobile, well, say goodnight. I know there were a few of you who wanted the Ham Knight's tanks to be manned, but this is a little bit too far. The Ham Knight isn't stupid. If you've seen the series before, you'll know the rules act more as guidelines anyway, and if you don't agree with my criteria, it really doesn't matter. This is all good fun and not to be taken seriously. And finally, subscribe. We need to hit 10k before the end of the year, or I'll become the Cardi Who Jonkles. So this is how it happened. This is how man died. We open with the Jonler being cremated. I pressed the button and burned him to death myself. He's dead and won't be making any more appearances in this series. After his death, Cronm takes the throne as Gotham's big good guy. In fact, he's so good he wanted to send everyone who wanted to go onto an all-expenses paid trip to New Hanover, a majestic expanse of land in the American West. The trade-off, though, is that Cronm wants to kill all of the criminals who remain, cementing himself as the best killer in Gotham and outdoing Man 10 times over. And tonight, there's only one guy who can stop him. Man himself. Man has donned a new suit for tonight, a more brutal, imposing suit than usual. Tonight, he's out for blood. We go and talk to a now pretty old Jimmy G, who tells us that the GCPD has been tracking an unknown military vehicle speeding through Gotham. But the real work begins when Jimmy G gets a call telling him that a patrol car is missing and an officer is down. Man's ears prick up because he knows where there's innocent people in pain, there's kills for him to gain. So he begins his flight over there. Once there, Man realises there isn't much room for kills, a shame indeed, but he rescues his cop, probably to come back and kill him later, before almost being run down by the unknown military vehicle Gordon told us about. Man ponders for a second. What is he to do? Well, he needs to tip the scales of war and call in the Man Tank. He gets in the Man Tank and begins chasing the car down and gets his first kill of the night, killing this criminal who stood in the way of the Man Tank, before seeing a cop car be blown to bits. And this does bring a smile to his face, but he didn't get the kill, so that happiness turns to rage, as he gets another kill in the background here, which has a nice constellation prize. And eventually he manages to stop the truck before interrogating the driver, who tells him he needs to go to Chinatown. That's where Cronm will be. Man arrives at Cronm's safe house and finds some new victims presented to him in a nice succinct package. He drops down, kills this guy by dropping his entire body weight on him and slamming his head into the floor, before putting 60,000 volts through this guy's body, frying his brain and melting his skull in this light, before finishing the room off chucking a Manarang at the final guy. Man is a tactician, and so there is a reason he left the final light over to the left of the room. Just trust the process. Pamela Plant kills this guard, which is fun, and then tries to kill us. We have to take her back to the GCPD, and on the way back we're told that Gotham is officially at war, and Cronm has launched an all-out tank invasion on the city. So Man, feeling mild fear that these tanks might actually outdo his kill count, heads over there and clears house, taking all of the tanks out before driving Mrs. Plant to her home for the next few hours. We drop Pammy off and talk to Jimmy G and Money, who begin telling us about other criminals in the city, but they don't really pose a threat to our kill count, so they're never going to be a priority tonight. However, we don't leave the GCPD empty-handed, as we run over to the evidence room and do a little trolling as we steal back our beloved The wreck gun. Oh, how I missed you. We then leave to go and meet Jimmy G's hyper-intelligent Discord mod daughter, who's in the top of the giant clock tower moderating her kittens. And on the way, we grab 2 more kills in the tank. I think this is a good time to say that for the most part, man won't be veering off the road to grab kills in the tank. Obviously, if the opportunity arises to claim a kill, he'll take it, but don't get angry at him for not actively hunting kills in the city, because again, this is more about what we can do in the main campaign. We make it to the Belfry, or whatever it's called. I think it's just called the Clock Tower, which is infinitely less mysterious, and find that Jimmy G's DMD has been trying to figure out what Cronm has been threatening Gotham with. And she comes to the conclusion it's some form of his classic Bhutanese Shadow Garden grown dark evil pack, which makes people see what they fear most. In our case, a world without kills. A world which wouldn't deserve to continue if it came to fruition. Man thinks he can figure out where the toxin is, and tells Jimmy G he can see Man-Bat from up here, and then heads off to try and find Cronm, but not before committing some public property damage to clear his mind. And while dragging his car up the side of this building, he realises he can use the antenna here to locate Cronm, so he powers it up using the man tank, but realises he needs more antennas because he is gluttonous. Man heads over to the other antenna and finds a cop being held hostage, and finds 5 new victims in the room with the hostage. He lures 2 of them outside and lets them live, before realising he needs to become a darker knight. A knight with more style, more finesse, a man with more G's than a scorpion manoeuvre. Man calls in his new suit, and the man porn begins. Sorry, I couldn't help myself, that guy's actually ruined this scene for me with that critique. It's not even Batman porn, it's just cool. It's like every Batman suit-up scene ever. That's not even a valid criticism. Anyway, man gears up into something a little more otherworldly. Say hello to man's final form, Manpoint. This suit has loads of cool features, including but not limited to takedowns which can break the sound barrier and kill on impact, cool red eyes, arm lengthening gliding techniques, and the best of all, dual Berettas. Call him Max because he's about to bring the pain. Get it? 'Cause he's using dual Berettas, like Max Pay. No one watched that video. Anyway, man heads into the vents and claims his next 3 victims with the newly learned Fear multi-takedown. Man wires the antenna up and eventually figures out Cronm, whose plan is to launch a giant chemical attack on Gotham, is working out of the old chemical plant. Genius detective work from Man as per usual. Man tells Jimmy G and his friends to meet him there so they can go in and talk to Crow together, but as they're discussing the new suit and how cool it is, they're interrupted by a giant helicopter, and in what I can only describe as one of the toughest displays of aura farming I've ever seen from Man, he walks directly up to the giant helicopter and begins staring it down. The helicopter is slightly glitchy though, since it's showing Man in a suit he has never worn before, but from what we can hear, the man in the chopper wants to kill Man, but Cronm doesn't let him, telling him he wants to keep Man alive for the moment he takes over his gargantuan kill count. The helicopter flies away and Man begins being shot at by some of Crow's tanks, but he dodges the bullets using his newly found Speed Force powers granted to him by the new suit. And he tells Jim to stay behind while he sees what all this ruckus in the chemical plant is about, and he uses his newly minted giant grapnel gun to get over to the front door and see what's going on. What he finds is a whole lot of fresh meat for the man grinder, which pleases him greatly. Jimmy G's DMD tells Batman not much is known about the man in the helicopter, but sources all agree on one thing: his name, the Ham Knight. Man begins furrowing his brow and telling DMD to put a message into general chat to ask if anyone knows anything about the Ham Knight, while he goes to rescue some workers who the Ham Knight's army have taken hostage. Man wants to bring the tank with him, so he drops into this control room, claiming 3 victims by way of Fear multi-takedown, shattering all of their bones in record time, before dropping this very heavy light fixture onto the 4th kill of the room, before using his immense physical prowess to pull this lever and bring the Man tank in to kill these other tanks. We next catch up to Man as he adds 3 more kills to his count by using another Fear multi-takedown, before moving this ramp into place for later use. Man now heads to find more victims, and finds a few more on this little island connected to the mainland by pipes, and as he calls in the Man tank, it decides it's already had enough of tonight, and so drives itself into the ocean with Man in the cockpit, killing them both. After being fished out of Gotham Bay by Gotham City Coast Guards, Man heads over to find those victims he wanted to get earlier, and when he gets there he shoots one, killing him, before running the next one down for getting in his way. Man then pulls the wall of this building down and finds 3 victims cowering behind it. He kills them for displaying such cowardice. Man finds a worker and decides it would be inhumane to leave him here to die. He's a killer, not a monster. He goes to grab the poor guy and is ambushed by the Ham Knight. The Ham Knight begins complimenting Man's suit and tells his men not to shoot him because the fit is impeccable. However, Man, being the aggressor in almost every situation he's in, decides to kill them. He takes one down with a straight bullet to the chest from the car, before kicking another guy into the path of what I can only assume is a stray bullet from the tank's barrel. He then decides to hop into the tank and shoots the 3 remaining victims, killing them all instantly. Man hears the cries of unclaimed victims, so heads over to the next part of the chemical plant, and finds these guys complaining about Man's skill level. He drops in, drives his first kill of the room's head into this junction box, does the same to the second, and after this dumbass tries to touch the new suit, Man reacts as rationally as possible and drives his body into a wall, almost definitely adding him to the tally, before picking up a bat. We should actually give him a new name when he's got a bat in his hand. Like, what about Club Man, or Baseball Man, or the Man Who Bats? I think there's one here that could work, but I just can't think of it. Anyway, Man picks up a bat, counters this thug's attack, throws him 10 feet into the air, and watches with glee as he lands on his head and dies. The last guy does sadly get to live. Man hears more victims underground and decides to check it out, but not before coming across some silent snake poison from Man Origins. He steers clear of this and finds some more dead factory workers, kills stolen from him by the Ham Knight and Cronm. He finds his next batch of victims and uses his newfound speed to kill 3 of them, and only 3 of them. I could have sworn there were environmental takedown opportunities in this room, but I must finally be going insane, because there aren't any, and so we leave with 3 kills, and a very much alive factory worker. Man puts the worker with his friend in the back of the tank and gets jumped by the giant helicopter again. He takes it down in quick fashion, killing the Ham Knight. Oh wait, no, he was controlling it remotely. How annoying. Anyway, on Man's way out of the chemical plant, he finds 5 more victims to claim. He gets 2 with a fear multi-takedown, 1 by smashing his head into the ground at the speed of sound, and sadly has to let the last 2 live, as after some experimenting, I discovered Man can't do ledge takedowns in this game. Why? Who knows, it's a mystery for another day, and I don't know how after 10 years of playing this game, I've only just realised they removed ledge takedowns. Man drops his 2 new allies off with Jimmy G and heads back in to find Cronm in the central mixing chamber. Once Man does a little more mind-clearing public property damage, he finds 2 guards who themselves are being guarded by a smaller, less mobile guard. Man unleashes the power of space and time on them and adds them to the count before disabling the less talkative of the trio. In this next section, we can really add to Man's count as there are 20 enemies here to be added, and don't worry, all of them are added. Man opens the gate and takes a huge portion of them out with the Man tank, 12 of them to be exact, before the remaining 8 cower behind in the room the Man tank can't access, so Man goes in on foot, lures 4 of them out and kills them, before adding another kill via stray bullet, another kill by dropping this light on this guy's head, and the penultimate kill is added via junction box, with the final kill coming when Man uses this wall fan as a battering ram. Man finds Cronm cooking up some of that dark evil pack and so has to stop him. He takes 2 guards out with fear takedown, adding them to the count, before returning to the old ways, blowing a weak wall out onto an unsuspecting guard, killing him. He then knocks out this guard and uses him as bait, placing explosive gel under his body to be detonated when his friends come to revive him, killing them both in the process. And just like that, we had 2 more kills to the tally, before adding 1 more using the same method, sending this guy into some sort of seizure state as he dies. That leaves us with 2 guards. One is blown up with explosive gel, and despite Man's best efforts, the final guard just wouldn't die via explosion. So Man smashes his ribs with his fists and leaves him on the floor. Man then goes to confront Cronm and smashes his head into this control panel, despite Crow clearly surrendering, which, according to Amnesty.com and the Metropolitan Police, is in fact a war crime, which I think means if I had a penny for every time Man breaches international laws surrounding human rights during warfare, I'd have 2 pennies, which isn't much, but it's weird it's happened twice in one series. Cronm tells Man he's discovered DMD's IP address, and has sent one of the Ham Knight soldiers to go and kidnap her. Man throws Crow aside and begins to warn her about the looming threat of kidnap, but when he turns around, Crow has escaped, leaving Man to contain the blast of the bomb Crow built, which if detonated would cover the entire eastern seaboard in his Bhutanese Shadow Guard and Grown Dark Evil pack, which would spell death for anyone involved, and Man wouldn't be able to claim a single kill. Man puts his chemistry degree to work and cooks up some of that neutralising agent and begins putting it into Crow's formula to make the blast radius stop before it can really get going. Fred begs Man to leave. If he doesn't leave soon, he will die and Gotham will be killed by someone much kinder than Man. Man continues, dedicated to the cause, before when putting the final batch of the neutralising agent in the mixture, he turns around and oh fuck. So you know when I said we'd never be seeing Jonler again? Well, it seems Man secretly imported Jonler's consciousness into his mind after he killed him in case of emergencies like this. We get some actual story here as we play as Jimmy G for the first time in the Manham series and see a truly terrifying sight. Gotham in daylight. God, that just looks so weird. I've been watching this footage back, this is so weird. I also like how half the sky's black and half of it's bright. Two-Face reference. Anyway, we find out Man has kidnapped 4 people who Jonler managed to get inside before he died, and now they're becoming Jonler. These are the Jonler variants. But Jimmy G points out the fact there's 5 cells and only 4 Jonlers. An astute observation, but he fails to recognise that the final Jonler is really the friend we made along the way. No, seriously, the final Jonler is actually a friend he made along the way. It's Man. We cut back to Man, and he is now officially the man who jonkles, as he escapes the exploding chemical plant. Man talks to Fred and tells him he's okay, but Fred becomes Jonler, and then Jimmy G. Anyway, Man heads back to the GCPD and tells Jimmy G his Discord mod daughter has been taken from the clock tower. Jimmy G loses his mind and tells us we need to go and find her now, so Man follows him to the clock tower, but on their way they're intercepted by 2 militia vehicles, one of which is blown up so we can safely assume they are dead and add 3 more kills to the count. And the second vehicle is blown up and thrown into the water in arguably our most definitive kill of the series so far. So we'll add 3 more kills to the count for this because holy lord above, they are absolutely double dead. We take Jimmy G to the clock tower and find it being surrounded by tanks, which we promptly deal with because we're really good at this game. It's here we get our next real batch of kills though, as we shoot this guy from inside the tank, killing him, add these 2 to the count via fear multi-takedown, and get our final kill by throwing this fan at this man's cranium. We get into the clock tower and eventually reveal to Jimmy G that his daughter, whose real name is actually Bra, spelt with a H, and not Jimmy G's Discord mod daughter, has been working for Man this whole time. And Jimmy G, clearly threatened by our fathering abilities compared to his own, takes his anger out on us, landing a swift hook to our jaw. It's worth noting that in the effort of not weakening Man, that he allowed Jimmy G to land this punch, and if he really wanted to, he could have killed him before he knew what was going on, but he quite likes him, so we let him live. Tensions are a bit high, so we decide the best way to cheer ourselves up is to begin doom scrolling on Instagram Reels, and whilst watching these Reels, we accidentally find the Ham Knight bundling Bra into the back of his car. We hop into the tank and begin tracking the tyre tracks and eventually hit a wall, however, that we can bring down, not by brute force, but by finesse and a button press. Man finds the button he needs to press to bring the bridge down so he can track Bra down in the big train terminal building. Man heads over there and finds some victims. He grabs 2 kills by way of fear multi-takedown, and for the first time in this outing, he gets a good old-fashioned delayed inverted takedown, before remembering how good they are and using another one on this guy, and this guy, and this guy, before finishing this section off by dropping his body weight onto this guy's skull, crushing it and killing him. Man hacks into the bridge controls and can bring them down when he's back at the Man tank, but it's here we find out the puzzler has taken my wife hostage, which really annoyed me. We head over there and fight some of the puzzler's henchmen and almost rescue Selena, but can't because she's a side mission and we don't do those around here, so we have to leave her behind. Man gets back to the car and tracks the Ham Knight's vehicle, where he finds it's crashed and neither Bra nor Ham are anywhere to be found. In response to this awful discovery, we hack into the Ham Knight's Discord server and find he's broadcasting from his underground Ham tunnel. Once inside, we have to do some more public property damage to calm ourselves down. But then we get a video from our son that we hate, who asks us if Bra is okay. We lie to his face and tell him she's fine because we don't respect him. Jonler praises our ability to disregard our child's feelings and continues to make fun of us as we track the Ham Knight. He also tells us that we're an awful person, which is right, we are. After doing some light espionage and breaking into the room where the Ham Knight last spoke to us, we get jumped and Man gets shot, which is a shame. The Ham Knight seems to know a lot about Man, which is strange. It's not like he's going to end up being like Cassandra Cain or anything. I don't know how he could possibly know all this information, because again, it's not like he knows Man personally, but he does. He sends in some fodder for us to dispose of as he begins escaping from our killer grass. In our infinite rage, we grab a kill on this brute before getting another by dropping this light on this guy's head, and another by putting this ninja's head through this junction box, which definitely fried his brain. And our final 2 kills in this room come by way of environmental takedowns, as we use this fan to kill the final 2 men we do kill in this room. After clearing the room out, we escape it and begin chasing the Ham Knight down, taking out his security force, so we'll add another 3 kills to the count. We eventually catch him, and by catch him, I mean blow the car he was in to the moon using our rockets, and jam his head under a tyre. However, when the car comes to a rest, we get out and the driver crawls out, and it isn't the Ham Knight. It's one of his friends pretending to be him using a voice changer. In response to this clear attempt to bamboozle us by the Ham Knight, we decide it's best to grab his friend, stick his head under the front tyre of the man tank, and hold the accelerator to try and kill him. It doesn't work. Militia uniforms are actually impervious to specifically having their head run over while being interrogated for the whereabouts of the Ham Knight. After we torture this victim enough, we eventually... Wait, I just realised the tyre treads on the tyre are actually the bat symbol. Huh, that's kind of cool. Anyway, we drop our armoured knee on this guy's head, definitely killing him after he was weakened by the bat tank, and Fred tells us that Dick, our son that we do like, has got a lead he wants to share with us, and we need to meet him on the Zooey Mama ferry terminal roof. We head over there and meet Dick, who tells us he wants to help us out, but as much as we like him, we essentially tell him to die. Dick says no, and we just give up and let him hang around because we need to conserve energy for kills. Dick hands us a gun. Oh my god, I've been waiting for this moment all night. We can finally shoot to kit. Oh, it's a disruptor. Again. Right. Okay, then why do we never get a gun that kills people? The victims below us work for the Wizard of Cobb, and Dick tells us he's smuggling weapons into the city, but we don't really give a shit. We also sell big time and don't get any kills here. I did try and restart from the checkpoint, but, well, we were at the checkpoint, so this was essentially a layup that I missed, and we miss out on like 3 really easy kills here, which is a shame, but the night is darkest just before the dawn, and we'll make up for this lapse in judgment later. We scare these dudes away and follow them to the Wizard of Cobb's palace. Once we get there, we find a few new victims, and after the previous waste of kills, Man is angry and begins by grabbing 2 kills with the Fear takedown, before causing this unfortunate soul to commit suicide. Unlucky. Once inside Cobb's palace, Man is captured by Cobb's men, but is saved by none other than Dick, who throws his classic Dick stick at this guy's head before we break out of our captor's grasp and begin grabbing more kills. Our first comes from this fan to the head, our second comes from another fan to the head, the third comes from 40,000 volts to the head, the fourth comes from, you guessed it, fan to the head, and then I guess since we set this up, the fifth comes by way of Dick, as we throw this guy into the air and Dick kicks him into next week. We destroy Penguin's gambling winnings and make our way outside. Once out in the open air, we find ourselves pinned down by these ham soldiers. Man doesn't enjoy this and suffers from claustrophobia, so instead of just asking for them to let him go, he calls the man tank and wipes these 5 guys off the map, slinging tank cannon rounds at them like it's the Battle of Kursk. Man leaves and Fred tells him to investigate the 2 airships which have appeared moored off the coast of Gotham. Man knows how harmful these ships can be when left unchecked, so has to head over there to check their health and safety parameters, and see if they conform to the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act. Man heads over there and finds some of the Ham Knight's soldiers, and he knows what must be done. Man kills 2 of them by Fear takedown and gets another kill by jamming the barrel of this guy's gun, Reacher style. Man then finds out he can get into the ship by hacking their doors, the first sign of their clear non-conformity to the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act. Once inside, he's able to hack some of the Ham Knight's equipment and uses it to kill 3 of them, electrocuting them to death. Man is then able to pretty easily hack into the mainframe and control the airship from his phone, again going against the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act. Man finds an old man being beaten down by Ham Knight soldiers, so he swoops in to join them, but they don't like that he has more drip than them, so they begin fighting him, causing Man to add more of them to his list, killing the first one by driving his body into this spotlight, the second by jamming his head into a junction box, and the third by quite literally and quite brutally jamming this poor guy's head into the spotlight while snapping his C1 vertebrae in the process. After beating these thugs into submission for later killing, Man talks to the old man, and it turns out he owns these airships. Man begins telling him about the multiple breaches of the May 6th, 1937 Airship Conservation Act, but he morphs into Joker, and then all of a sudden Man has to fight all of these ruthless jonklers who begin getting up and looking at him all funny, and Man, in this rage-filled state, kills these jonklers, but they probably aren't real, so they aren't added to the count. I will directly contradict this rule later, but fuck you, it's Man's last outing and I can do what I want. When we come around, we find that the old man has been taken by the Ham Knight's less health and safety concerned soldiers, who have kidnapped him and dragged him over to the other airship. Man has to disable the guns on the side of the airship before he can head over there to continue his lecture about the Airship Conservation Act, so he heads into a giant room full of chimps and victims. Man needs to access the old man's computer, and so has to clear the Ham Knight's men out. He doesn't want to get his hands dirty, so remotely blows the first thug up. He then steals download codes from this soldier's phone and uses them to electrocute the second victim of this room. Kills 3 and 4 come when Man drops onto these unsuspecting morons and drives their organs into paste at the speed of light, and kill 5 comes when Man makes this guy blow himself up like a dumbass. There was a slight wait for kill 6, but it came when Man, outnumbered and out of viable options, used his immense genius to place explosive gel here, killing this man and knocking the other down. And then, in one of the funniest kills I've ever seen, Man drags this guy towards him using the claw, uses his own momentum against him, and flings him down a flight of stairs onto a railing where he definitely broke his skull open and died. Man manages to reconstruct the old guy's fingerprints after reviewing footage that shows the Ham Knight trying to give him the same lecture Man was trying to give him. See, if they could only be friends, the Ham Knight could be Man's new Robin. With stolen fingerprints in hand, Man shoots the guns off the other airship, allowing easy access to find the old man. On his way back to where he'll jump to the other ship, he runs into this group of evil victims, but sadly can't claim any of them because he's just too excited by the fact that he'll soon be able to give his lecture. Man opens the bay doors and jumps from one airship to the other, and on his way kills 2 of the soldiers with the ever-faithful and ever-lethal ceiling light fixture. He then finds the old man but is faced with 10 more victims to add to the count. Does he get them all? No, he doesn't, but he does get a few, and here's how. He gets the first with remote explosion, the second and third with a fear multi-takedown, the fourth with another remote explosion, the fifth with yet another remote explosion. These are quickly becoming Man's favourite toy, evident by the fact that he also uses it to get his 6th kill. He gets his 7th with a glide kick into a metal railing, and this guy just, well, dies. Man then rage baits this guy into killing himself, adding his 8th kill to the count, and that brings this room to an end with the final 2 soldiers being allowed to live. Man gets to finally talk to the old man, who says that not only has he been breaching the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act, but he's also been helping Cronm build a giant Bhutanese Shadow Garden Grown Dark Evil Pack dispersal device, which, if detonated, will engulf the whole city. The old man then tells Man that Cronm is in the next room, cooking up his device, so Man reads him the lecture and knocks him out for his improper safety practices. Man heads to find Cronm and finds there are in fact 2 of them. Man tries to take one down and picks the fake one, leading to being injected with that Bhutanese Shadow Garden Grown Dark Evil Pack, which sends Man into a killing frenzy, combining his strength with the Jonkler's insanity. Man beats these soldiers down and continues to beat them up even after surrendering. And I'm not talking a few slaps or a punch, I mean he actually beats them to death and once again commits a war crime. Gotham is at war with the Ham Knight, Man sees soldiers surrendering and still decides to beat them to death, and I will be counting them onto the count for that reason, so let's stick another 5 on there. Man then really loses it. He really gives in to his desires here, and after being egged on by an army of jonklers, he finds a revolver in his hand, he pulls the trigger, and kills Cronm for good. Our first kill with a gun. This is a truly monumental moment, and we will be adding it to the count because it's the only time we see Man use a gun in the series. So for the culture, even though it doesn't actually kill anyone, it's going on the count. Cronm begins escaping and actually does as his giant helicopter rips the front of the airship off as he escapes on his Bhutanese dispersal device. He escapes and then the Ham Knight appears, firing 2 rockets at Man which knock him down for a few seconds. He regains his footing and gets a video message from Cronm that tells him Bruh, spelt with a H, is actually in the same safe house we rescued our green friend from earlier. We head over there and find her in her chair, and she gets a hit of the Bhutanese Shadow Garden Grown Dark Evil Pack and begins tweaking. firing at the glass with a gun like she can actually hit us through this. Silly woman, oh my god, she just shot herself. The Ham Asylum, the Ham City, the Ham Origins, and now Ham Knight. She will be missed, but we can't stop our rampage just because we inadvertently forced one of our closest allies and our son's fiancée to kill herself. No, we need to go and see if our green friend back in the GCPD will help us, because her plants are very strong and will be able to combat Cronm's Bhutanese shadow-grown dark evil pack dispersal device. Man heads back to the GCPD and grabs Pammy out of a cell, and after leaving the GCPD, encounters the Ham Knight's new weapon, a Cobra tank. These big boys are actually pretty useless, as they have a glaring flaw, the giant target on their back. Man blows the tank up and begins trying to find where Ivy's plant is located. He finds it using his underground sonar and it begins growing, ready to protect the city. The Ham Knight soldiers see the plant and think it ruins the Gotham skyline, so begin heading to try and chop it down. But little do they know, Man has a green thumb. He glides over to them and rams 2 of their heads into these spotlights, adding 2 more kills to the count. Man then decides to go and see if he can find where the Bhutanese dispersal device is hidden. This, however, does mean going to see that our son that we hate, but Man tries to deploy the Man Wing to track it, and a set of missile launchers won't allow the Man Wing in. But as we're formulating our plan, our son that we hate asks where his girlfriend is. We again lie to his face and tell her she's fine because we don't respect this bum. And as Man delivers the good news to his son, he finds a weakness he can exploit in the Ham Knight's current stronghold on Founders Island, a drone which acts as a relay. So if Man can get his hands on the drone, he can figure out how to dismantle the fortress. He gets to the drone, destroys it, and finds himself really not enjoying the presence of a long-range missile launcher that the Ham Knight has set up to stop the Man Wing from finding the Bhutanese dispersal device. So he heads over to destroy it, but it's guarded. Great, more kills. Man breaks through this glass roof and smashes this man's head into the floor with the force of an angry gorilla to claim his first kill. He then sneaks up behind this guy and instead of using a silent takedown, grabs his gun and smashes his head in with the butt of it, which I am counting as a kill. The third kill comes from Man's newfound love for remote explosives when he catches this guy in his trap and murders him, before claiming 2 more kills with a fear multi-takedown here. He's then able to begin killing the rocket launcher, but is interrupted by the Ham Knight, who finds himself stuck in a room with a stone cold killer, as Man drops from the vents and gets 3 kills via fear takedown, before finally getting his hands on the Ham Knight, who gets scared and leaves his men behind to die. Man claims this big boy's life by using the old smash and grab technique, and by that I mean he smashes his head through the light and stands there until enough faults have passed through it enough to kill him. And the same goes for the next kill, but he's just smashed into another light and killed, before the final kill of this room comes from this junction box being in close vicinity to this man's brain. Man is finally able to kill the missile launcher using the tank and thus is able to send the Man Wing around Gotham to find the Bhutanese dispersal device. He then heads back to the clock tower and looks at the results of the scan, but it comes back empty, unlike his inbox, which is now being filled by Joseph Quinn from the hit TV show Dexter. Wait, what? I just assumed they were the same person. Huh, okay, apparently this is Harry Quinn, and Harry has taken over the movie studios to try and steal the 4 remaining Jonklers. We head over there and remember on the way that our bitch boy's son is there, so I guess we do have to try and save him too. Once we arrive, Man jams this fool's head into this electric box, killing him, before getting his next 2 kills with the good old remote explosive hacks, a favourite of Man's tonight. Man then tries to get into the studios but is stopped and subsequently ambushed by a few of Harry Quinn's men, who have come armed and dangerous. The first of these 11 available kills comes when Man tricks this brute into touching the ammo box of infinite electrical current, which vaporizes his internal organs instantly, and you get 10 points if you guess where the next kill came from. If you said remote explosion, you are correct. Man's next 3 kills come from a fear takedown, and I assumed we'd only get 2 kills here, but a third walked around the corner right on cue, setting himself up to die. His next kill comes from an unexpected turn of events as Man tries to silently take down this guy, drops a smoke pellet instead, drops down behind the victim and throws him at the speed of light against this wall, shattering his ribs and puncturing his lung, killing him. His next 2 kills come in rapid fashion, one being by way of electrocution through a rigged ammo box, and the next comes about 3 seconds later through generator explosion. Man heads inside and since he's in an elevator begins having flashbacks to the Asylum, remembering where all of this madness began, remembering the huge kill count he racked up there and laughing at the thought of it. Once he gets inside, he finds his son that he hates because he's balding at the age of 25, fighting off a load of Harry Quinn's thugs, but since he wants more kills, he can't help but get involved. Since his last appearance, Man's son's hair has grown, and he swapped to a much more visually pleasing outfit, so we won't be making fun of him anymore, and we'll call him by his full name, Dim Trake. We jump in to help Dim out, and get 4 kills with a fear takedown before getting the 5th with this electrical box. Our final kill of this room is classic Man, beating an enemy into submission but picking him back up, swinging him around and throwing his head into 40,000 volts of electricity. Man and Dim then begin interrogating the final thug, who they decide to spare for his information. The dynamic duo deduce the 3 escaped Jonler variants are in 3 parts of the movie studios, and decide to head after the female Jonler first. Our duo of dimwits find a group of thugs, and Man drops a light on one of their heads and throws another into the spotlight just to prove a point, adding 2 more kills to the count. Once they find the female Jonler, they also find a batch of new victims for the taking. Dim is left out of these sections because although Man may now respect him, we don't. Man sneaks up on this guy and knockout smashes him at the speed of sound. Seriously, this footage is not sped up, so do we count it as a kill? I mean, he was punched in the back of the skull at 400 miles an hour, so... oh, go on then, it's the finale, isn't it? Man then grabs 3 kills via fear takedown before finally, after so long, grabbing another delayed inverted takedown kill. This was quite satisfying, so I don't feel like we got many of these in this game. We then apprehend female Jonler after she tries to win a duo's final circle battle with her friend against the Dark Knight and Bird Boy. Man goes off to find the big Jonler and manages to grab 4 kills on the way via fear takedown. He then has a vision of the old Robin who he did respect, Todrick, stuck in a wheelchair, which is strange because when Man knew him he wasn't disabled. Jonler appears and begins taunting Todrick that Man has found a new son, Dim. Naturally, Todrick isn't very happy about this because even he doesn't respect Dim, and since Joker is one of the few people who does, he begins beating him to death, another sign of Jonler's insanity. Long story short, Man and Dim beat the big Jonler down over time and get a combined 0 kills together, and despite my best efforts to get the big Jonler to hit the littler Jonlers, it didn't work, so we leave here empty and we force Dim, who we still don't have much respect for, to lift the big Jonler back to his cell. Man then heads to find the 3rd and final Jonler variant, Johnny Clare. Johnny Clare is hidden away, waiting to serenade us with his dulcet tones, and on the way to find him we come across this big boy who we decide deserves to die by way of blunt force trauma to the head. Spoiler alert, we don't get any kills for the remainder of our time in the movie studio, much to our disappointment, rendering this segment useless. So let's run through some story, shall we? Basically, Man and Dim beat Johnny Clare after he tried to kill himself, something we simply couldn't allow, so we take him out for later killing. When we begin heading back to the cells to round up our escaped Jonler variants, we manage to take Harry down, who seems to be rather caked. Then we get back to the cells and find out Henry, the oldest of the Jonlers, is also the evilest of the Jonlers. Harry gets a bit turned on by the serious DILF energy coming off of the oldest Jonler, but he notices Man is the man who jonkles, and he just cannot handle the level of aura that Man radiates, and thus kills himself. He doesn't unalive himself, he fucking kills himself, leaving Harry stunned, Man shunned, and the other Jokers gunned. Dim finally gets the hint and realises that Man isn't in danger, he is the danger, and so Man decides it's time to lock himself away. What? Why? Man, you still have so much. Get fucked, Dim, you waste of space. See you next time. After locking Dim away for wearing a wig and trying to impress us with a new outfit, we break him even more by telling him Bra is dead. Unlucky, Dim. We then realise something. The Ham Knight has all of the main characters in this game in his Life 360 circle, which means he knows where Pammy is, and when he finds her, he'll probably kill her or something. So we head over there to try and save Ivy, but as we begin talking her into our back seat, we get an alert from Fred. The Ham Knight has been found, and he's just detonated the Bhutanese dispersal device. Gotham is covered. Welcome to the city of Bhutanese shadow-grown dark evil pack. Man realises Pammy's singular plant won't be enough to combat this dark pack, and to find another plant he needs to use the tank, and to use the tank he needs a power cell that wasn't wiped out by the dispersal device. That power cell can be found in those airships we went to inspect earlier, and when we arrive, gliding all the way over the dark evil pack city, we find 8 armed men waiting to be killed. Man's first 2 kills come by fear multi-takedown, and well, he just doesn't get any more. I'm not sure what was going on with Man here, maybe he just decided to not kill anyone out of kindness, very strange, but at least the old man gives us the correct power cell for the tank, which will lead to more kills in the future, so I prefer to think of this as an investment. We head back to the car and begin attaching the new cell, which makes the man tank drivable in Bhutanese shadow-grown dark evil pack infested areas. Man equips it and finds Pammy's other plant. It grows, sprouts, and becomes another addition to the Gotham skyline, but there aren't any kills for like half an hour. It's just tank fights for so long. But anyway, after protecting Pammy's plant from a Ham Knight assault, it begins taking fat rips of that Bhutanese shadow-grown dark evil pack from the atmosphere. The Ham Knight then challenges us to a duel. We win obviously and rip that sorry sack of meat from his fancy tank before beating his face in, brutally laying in punches until, much like in the city, the person we're punching turns into the Jonler, escaping from our grasp in the process. We head back to give Pammy some words of encouragement to get this Bhutanese shadow-grown dark evil pack out of the sky, and she does just that, killing herself in the process. We were there in the beginning, and we were there at her end. Thank you, Pammy Plant. Your sacrifice has not gone unnoticed. After saving Gotham from the evil pack, we get a call telling us Jimmy G is using encrypted channels to make contact with us, so we go to help him. We find him surrounded by Ham Knight soldiers. He has been gymnapped. After some mental warfare, we manage to trick these buffoons into fighting our man tank, and obviously this doesn't go well. After some tomfoolery on the game's behalf, I think we racked up about 20 kills, a good way for the game to make up for its lack of kills for the last 40 minutes. On our way down the rabbit hole, we get a nice gift, 4 kills with the tank to be exact. Man then uses the ret gun to shock these dudes to death, putting another 4 kills on the count. Eventually we come across this room of Ham Knight soldiers doing mandatory suicide vest training, where they'll be trained how to effectively kill themselves, but Man doesn't stand for suicide, finding it to be a cowardly way to escape his murderous grasp, so he takes it upon himself to hit the head of the suicide vest division with a mean scorpion death drop. He then takes it upon himself to teach a few lessons on how to die like a man, cutting the light onto this man's head, putting his lights out, ironically enough, smashing this coward through a light and putting him through electrical torture before he finally dies, and the final kill comes from throwing this man into 40,000 volts, killing him almost instantly. After clearing the rest of the room, Man heads deeper down the hole and finds himself face to face with the Ham Knight. Well, it's more like tank barrel to giant 25-foot grinding machine, but alas, here we are. We lure the Ham Knight through tunnels pre-rigged with enough explosives to bring a developed nation to its knees. However, the Ham Knight is strong, and after we escape his attempts to crush our tank, he reveals he knows we are Bruce Man under the mask, and then crushes the tank anyway. We finally find Jimmy G, but he's surrounded by Ham Knight guards. We jump out of the vent and begin cracking skulls. Our first kills come from the 5th takedown as we decimate 3 guys' bodies in lightning quick fashion. We then got pretty creative for our next kills here, luring the core of the enemy pool down the escalator right into the explosive generator that we obviously detonate. We get 5 kills here, and despite Man getting the final kill cam, 2 more enemies oppose our will to kill, and so we dispose of them. Sadly, we don't get any kills despite my best efforts, but we need to move on from this tragic display. We begin rescuing Jimmy G and get jumped by the Ham Knight. The Ham Knight tells us he is sick of our reign of terror and will kill us, but Man is still confused as to who's behind the mask. The Ham Knight lifts his mask, and it's Todrick, the second Robin. Todrick begins telling us about the time we left him to be beaten, shot, gassed, drugged, stabbed, blown up, hung, and basically beaten half to death by the Jonler, and since we don't really respect the current Robin, we decide to try and give him his old job back with increased wages, better sick pay, and more paid overtime. However, he doesn't want his job back and prefers being the Ham Knight, and during contract negotiations, we begin fighting Todrick. While trying to give Todrick his old job back, we managed to pick up 2 kills in the second phase of the fight. In the third phase, after pleading to Todrick's family-orientated lifestyle and receiving what I felt was a pretty personal insult from the former Ham Knight.
Use your eyes, fat man. You remember how.
We pick up a kill using the classic delayed inverted takedown before blowing another guy up using a generator. We finally beat Todrick, ripping his armour to reveal his old Robin outfit, which he hates, but he still is not interested in our job, and by the time we tell Fred that Todrick is in fact alive, he's gone to... where exactly? Well, no one knows, but he's gone. We then rescue Jimmy G, and after this thug gets our revenge from his earlier slap on us, we finally get to meet Cronm again. Cronm tells us that he has won and Jimmy G agrees, but only when Cronm reveals that Bra is still alive, turning his gun on Man to try and join the right side of history. Jimmy G shoots Man, but when we see he shoots Man in the chest plate, we know what he's doing. He's getting us off the roof so we can continue to kill. But before we can get any more kills, we need to stock our HR department. So we save Bra after she's thrown off the roof by Cronm before Jimmy G is kidnapped again. We take Bra back to the GCPD in our new man tank delivered to us by Kamatos so we can keep killing and find some of the Ham Knights. Well, okay, I guess they're Cronms now. So we find some of the Cronm soldiers ripping the clock tower apart, and we don't appreciate this, so we head over there and put a stop to it. We pull up and get 2 kills right off the bat with the tank's cannon, killing the 2 snipers pretty quickly and pretty brutally, before heading onto the roof and getting our last kill with an explosive generator. We head back to the GCPD and find that it's under attack by Cronm's forces. They want to kill the cops inside, but unfortunately for them, we want to kill them more, and kill them we do. Using the tank, we kill 17 by my count, improving our body count massively. But this is far from the end of our killing spree, as we engage in our final bit of tank-based combat in this 60v1 deathmatch, which we win in very convincing fashion. Seriously, I was quite impressed with how well this went. Getting a combo that big in a tank fight's no easy feat, and I'm just waffling now, so you have to watch the gameplay. It's really good, and I'm very proud of myself. I'm also going to start talking slower now to make sure I don't have to speed this up too much. You should also subscribe, because I make good videos sometimes. Some of them aren't very good, but people tell me they are, so you should subscribe and see what you think. Anyway, we get to the roof, and with some help from Bra's hyper-quick hacking skills, we get some more kills. The first comes when we electrocute this guy to death, which is followed by what I can only assume is either very hot or very cold gas to the entire body of this poor guy, leaving him either burned or frozen to death in record time. Cronm sends more men after us, but in very similar fashion to before. The first is electrocuted to death against this fence, before the second is then either burned or frozen to death in rapid fashion. It doesn't matter, they're dead anyway. The next and final kill comes from a definite frozen kill, as Man sets Bra up to mercilessly freeze this man's organs together. Man then finds himself on the phone with Cronm, being told that his son who he hates has been kidnapped. Man doesn't care and goes off to complete side content. Okay, no, he has to go and save Jimmy G at the very least, and to do that he has to turn himself into Cronm. He heads to a warehouse, takes his utility belt off and puts himself in the back of a van, which is headed to God knows where. As Man says his farewells to his trusty utility belt, leaving it behind in the warehouse, a car smacks into the side of the van, saving Man, but spitting him out in Crime Alley, the place where it all began. Man is jumped by hundreds of Jonklers, and since this is the finale, we're going to count them all. And this will go for any kill that Man or the Jonkler gets in Man's head from here on out, real or not. Why? Because again, it's the finale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in one of the most satisfying kills of the series, Man wraps his hands around Jonkler's neck, wrenches, and finally kills him. This is where we snap back to reality, and in an ironic twist of fate, find ourselves heading towards Arkham Island, in a shot-for-shot remake of our first visit to the Asloon with Man all those years ago. Once we're there, we find ourselves strapped to a gurney, Cronm in complete control. He makes us look at Dim and Jimmy G as he taunts us. He's won. He then makes Jimmy G unmask Man in front of a camera, the world watching in anticipation to see who Man really is. It's Bruce Man. Cronm injects Bruce Man with the Bhutanese shadow-grown Dark Evil pack, and we find ourselves in Jonkler's shoes, being kidnapped by the Puzzler, the Wizard of Cobb, Face, and Chiller Croc. Joker uses the oldest trick in the book, calling in the tank to do his dirty business as it drives in and hits Croc at 100 miles an hour square in the ribs, killing him, before wiping out the onlooking crowd, all 100 of them. We're taking Face's word for it here that there are 100, but I believe him, even though when I counted I got closer to 65, but even if he is a bit two-faced, we'll believe him. Wait. Jonkler, after getting the highest single kill count in the series in one segment, jumps out of the Jonk tank and begins hunting his captors. He begins by shooting the Wizard of Cobb, adding him to the count, before killing the Puzzler and his hostage in one of the most deserved deaths of the series, and finishes off by killing Face. We then head through the combined mind of Man and Jonkler and witness horrors beyond human comprehension. A creepy horror game section we can't win. After Man is injected with enough Bhutanese shadow-grown Dark Evil pack, he grows tired of fear. conquering fear itself as he eventually gets his hands on Jonler, doing what he should have done years ago, beating him to a bloody pulp before finally putting an end to him, throwing him in a cell where he'll be left in the dark corners of man's mind forever, telling Jonler that he is vengeance, he is the night, he is man, adding our final, more spiritual kill to our count. Man tells Cronm he isn't afraid of him, as he's saved by none other than Todrick, who finally took his old job back. Well, kind of, but we'll find out what he does later on down the line. Man breaks out, injects Cronm with his own dark evil pack as Jimmy G lands the final, satisfying punch on Cronm, bringing the night and man as we know him to an end. The world knows man is Bruce Man. Gotham now needs something worse, something less human, to protect her. This is how it happened. This is how man died. Well, there it is, the final canonical kill count of man's career. But how many kills did we get? Well, counting kills he got in his head and kills grabbed as Jonler at the end there, man racked up a new series high of 372, bringing the series total to 1,149. But this isn't the end of man, he'll be back eventually. He might be gone for a while, but he doesn't stay down for too long. This has been a hell of a ride for man, and although we'll never see him the same again, he's changed lives, taken lives, and hopefully made yours just that little bit better. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, because this video was so fun to make, but has taken my energy levels to an all-time low. So drop a like if you enjoyed, and I will see you next time when we see what Todrick has got up to after the ham night. Love you all, thank you for watching, and goodbye.